If you've ever seen the movie The Ten Commandments, made years and years ago, it was the story of the children of Israel being delivered from the bondage of Egypt under the guidance of Moses. The children of Israel had been in Egypt for 430 years, and a good part of that time they were slaves. They cried out to God. God sent a deliverer. And Moses delivered them from Egypt through the Red Sea into the wilderness. They were in the wilderness for 40 years until finally they were right at the border of Jordan, moving into Canaan, the promised land. This was a land that God promised Abraham over 600 years previously. And in that 600 years, when they were a large part of the time in Egypt, the nations round about moved into that land in Canaan and took over. And there were 7 nations greater than them that were possessing the land. And God said, they're so wicked, they're so evil, they have to be driven out. And he said, I don't want you to leave any of them there. I want you to completely drive them out, because otherwise you'll learn their ways. Well, they did part what God said. They drove some of them out, but they left some of them there. And sure enough, exactly what God said happened. It wasn't too long until they began worshiping Baal, until they began creating altars on all the street corners throughout Jerusalem and in all the towns and villages round about. It got to the point that they were even sacrificing their own children to Moloch, one of the heathen gods. And I suppose the epitome of the whole slide downward showed up with Solomon. Solomon was King David's son, beloved of God, and God promised him wisdom greater than anyone before him or after him. And Solomon built the temple for God. He spent 7 years building the temple, and then he dedicated it. He made a scaffolding and was up on top of the scaffolding. He was speaking to the people. He was talking about the goodness of God. Then he knelt down with his hands raised to heaven, and he prayed. He prayed a dedication for the temple. He prayed for the children of Israel, and it was a blessed moment. But Solomon loved many women. Some people collect baseball cards. Some people collect stamps or coins. Solomon collected women. But the unfortunate thing is he collected them from the pagan lands rather than the nation of Israel. And the Bible said that these wives of his turned his heart. And at the end of his reign, you saw Solomon, the man who had dedicated the temple and worshiped God. You saw him building temples for these pagan gods, to the point that God eventually drove the children of Israel out of the promised land, and they went into 70-year captivity in Babylon. It seems that in any situation, when you bring evil and good together, evil tends to prevail. They say a few rotten apples will destroy the apples in the bushel. It never is the good apples that rehabilitates the bad ones. It always seems to be the other way around. And so God gave us some template in the Word. The first thing he said is avoid the wicked. Avoid them. Don't envy them. Don't desire to be with them. Don't walk in their pathway. Stay away from them. And then he said, avoid the fools, foolish people. Don't spend any time with them. And the contrary part of it, he said, spend your time around wise people. The Bible says, he that walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. And so we want to spend our time around wise people with integrity. There was a king by the name of Joash, and he was 7 years old when he was anointed as king. Of course, 7 years old, what do you know about running a kingdom? Not much. But in his life, there was a man named Jehoiada, and Jehoiada actually was his uncle by marriage, was a priest, was a godly man. He was a man of intelligence and wisdom, and Jehoiada took Joash under his wing and guided him, advised him, shepherded him along. And the Bible said, as long as Jehoiada was in Joash's life, Joash's ways pleased the Lord. He did what was right. But then Jehoiada died, and Joash began to connect with evil princes in his kingdom, and he shifted around totally, to the point that Jehoiada's son, who was priest, chastised him and told him he needed to mend his ways, and Joash had him put to death. And when he got to the end of his life, he had so become wicked that the People of the land didn't even bury him with the kings. They felt it was a desecration to the king's sepulchres to include him there. And his life is a testimony to the influence of good and the influence of evil. And I'm going to ask you, who influences your life? It's been said that he that knows not and knows not that he knows not is a fool. Shun him. He that knows not and knows that he knows not is simple. Teach him. He that knows and knows not that he knows is asleep. Wake him. He that knows and knows that he knows is wise. Follow him. The only caveat I would add there is make sure he's a man of integrity. So the question I have is, who are you allowing to impact your life? We're all influenced by other people, whether we want to admit it or not. We are. And if we allow the wicked into our life, we're going to be influenced by them. We need to have people of integrity, people who are successful, people who are more successful, who have more integrity, who have more righteousness. We need to build them into our lives so they'll impact us and move us along in the right path. And they don't even have to be people that we know and we associate with. We can emulate people that we know of. I watched a football game not long ago with Tom Brady, and he was mid-40s playing football, and at the same time he was playing against a team that had a very young quarterback. It might have been Mac Jones, I'm not sure, but it was a young guy. And this young guy, as a kid, had idolized Tom Brady. He watched him play, and he learned his plays, and he's learned his techniques and so on. And he was interviewed, and he said what an honor it was to play on the same field with Tom Brady in this game. Now, Tom Brady during this time wouldn't have even known who this kid was. And yet this kid was influenced greatly by Tom's life. And you may be influenced by somebody like Warren Buffett, as an example, the way he invests and what he does. And people spend all kinds of time reading the biographies of great men because they want to learn their ways. They want to learn about them. And so these people can influence us. And we can be influenced by great people, and we want to make sure that that's who influences our lives. But there's a flip side to that, and the flip side is, who are you influencing? There was an old man who was in the hospital dying. And his son came to visit him one day, and when he walked into the door, he noticed that the old man was lost in thought. And he said, "Dad, you looked lost in thought when I came in. What were you thinking about?" And the dad said, "When I was just a kid, we lived on a farm, and there was a dirt road passing in front of us." And he said, "You went down that dirt road, and there was a fork in the road, and there was a sign at the fork pointing to town." And he said, "As a lark, I changed the direction of the sign." And he said, "I was just lying here thinking, I wonder how many people I sent down the wrong road over the years." And that's a question you need to ask yourself. You have great impact on other people. People that you surround yourself by, and people you don't even know. People who listen to you, people who watch you, and you influence them. We here at Remax Garden City, we have a mentoring program. And when we hire people right off the course who really haven't experienced anything in real estate, we assign them an experienced mentor who takes them under their wing and guides them along and helps them and shows them the way. And many cases, they've become friends for years. The power of mentorship. In your life, there's people that are looking up to you that you don't even know about. There are Joashes that need a Jehoiada, and that can be you. Your life, your integrity, your influence can impact people for years to come, can impact dozens, can impact hundreds, can impact the generation. It's an awesome responsibility, and it's our responsibility. Thanks so much for joining me on this video. I look forward to talking to you again next week.